Borders are political boundaries of political entities or legal jurisdictions, such as governments, sovereign states, federated states, and other subnational entities. Borders are established through agreements between political or social entities that control those areas. The creation of these agreements is called boundary delimitation. Some borders, such as most states' internal administrative border, or interstate borders within the Schengen area, are open and completely unguarded. Most external borders are partially or fully controlled, and may be crossed legally only at designated border checkpoints, and border zones may be controlled. Borders may even foster the setting up of buffer zones. A difference has also been established in academic scholarship between border and frontier, the latter denoting a state of mind rather than state boundaries. In the pre-modern world, the term border was vague and could refer to either side of the boundary. Thus it was necessary to specify part of it with borderline or borderland. During the medieval period, the government's control frequently diminished the further people got from the capital. Therefore, borderland attracted many outlaws. There the outlaws often found sympathizers. In the past, many borders were not clearly defined lines. Instead, there were often intervening areas, often claimed and fought over by both sides, sometimes called marchlands. Special cases in modern times were the Saudi Arabian-Iraqi neutral zone from 1922 to 1991 and the Saudi-Kuwaiti neutral zone from 1922 until 1970. In modern times, marchlands have been replaced by clearly defined and demarcated borders. For the purposes of border control, airports and seaports are also classed as borders. Most countries have some form of border control to regulate or limit the movement of people, animals, and goods into and out of the country. Under international law, each country is generally permitted to legislate the conditions that have to be met in order to cross its borders, and to prevent people from crossing its borders in violation of those laws. Some borders require presentation of legal paperwork like passports and visas, or other identity documents, for persons to cross borders. To stay or work within a country's borders, aliens may need special immigration documents or permits. But possession of such documents does not guarantee that the person should be allowed to cross the border. Moving goods across a border often requires the payment of excise tax, often collected by customs officials. Animals moving across borders may need to go into quarantine to prevent the spread of exotic, infectious diseases. Most countries prohibit carrying illegal drugs or endangered animals across their borders. Moving goods, animals, or people illegally across a border, without declaring them or seeking permission, or deliberately evading official inspection, constitutes smuggling. Controls on car liability insurance validity and other formalities may also take place. In places where smuggling, migration, and infiltration are a problem, many countries fortify borders with fences and barriers, and institute formal border control procedures. These can extend inland, as in the United States, where the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Service has jurisdiction to operate up to 100 miles from any land or sea boundary. On the other hand, some borders are merely signposted. This is common in countries within the European Schengen area and on rural sections of the Canada-United States border. Borders may even be completely unmarked, typically in remote or forested regions. Such borders are often described as porous. Migration within territorial borders, and outside of them, represented an old and established pattern of movement in African countries, in seeking work and food, and to maintain ties with kin who had moved across the previously porous borders of their homelands. When the colonial frontiers were drawn, Western countries attempted to obtain a monopoly on the recruitment of labor in many African countries, which altered the practical and institutional context in which the old migration patterns had been followed, and some might argue, are still followed today. The frontiers were particularly porous for the physical movement of migrants, and people living in borderlands easily maintained transnational cultural and social networks. A border may have been. In addition, a border may be a de facto military ceasefire line. Political borders are imposed on the world through human agency. That means that although a political border may follow a river or mountain range, such a feature does not automatically define the political border, even though it may be a major physical barrier to crossing. Political borders are often classified by whether or not they follow conspicuous physical features. On the Earth, natural borders are geographical features that present natural obstacles to communication and transport. Existing p.